What is going on, everybody? Jason Aponte and Brad Graham back at you for another State of the Franchise episode. Hopefully, everyone's having a phenomenal day. Obviously, the big point of emphasis is around Deebo Samuel. But before we get into that, Jason, where are you right now?
I am currently at the NFL Draft Experience. Media availability just ended with many prospects. Got a chance to talk with Joe Klatt and a few other of your favorite media members as well too. But the players are off the bus and they're headed to wherever they are. But this is going to be where most of the stuff for fans is going to be going on. You got a trading card set up right up here. There's going to be autographs everywhere. A certain current 49er is supposed to be here as well Friday at 4:15 Pacific time until 5. There's no interview process or anything like that, but I will be around to ear hustle because there will be questions thrown out there and I want to hear a little bit more.
Absolutely. And again, make sure you guys like both of these videos on the dual stream. Get this thing up. Drop a spicy sourdough for Spicy Aponte and the Sourdough Squad. Let's get this thing rolling. But speaking of ear hustling, Jason, have you heard anything? Obviously, we'll get into the meat of the Deebo Samuel situation, what you think, how you're perceiving it all to be. But you're out there right now on the ground around the entire NFL world. Have you heard anything? Have you spoke to anyone that might have any insight on Deebo Samuel? Anything like that?
Yeah, I actually have. It's a former coach, a special teams coach that's been around the league. He's very well connected, knows somebody who I'm very close with. I actually really respect. And what basically was relayed to me was about Deebo Samuel. It sounds more like the team is going to wait until a team is on the clock and start to really push those talks in terms of, okay, now you've got to make a decision. Are you going to draft the guy or are we going to make a decision here? Again, clearly it seems like the 49ers are playing this out as best they can and trying to get the best haul that they can. But from what I just found out from somebody who I respect very much, was it's going to be more close to when that team is on the clock, if anything happens at all. So that's just a little freebie. And that's why you guys need to tap in winno.app, winno.app/Jason Aponte. I actually sent that to that group first before I dropped that on here. So that's your little freebie. But everything that I'm going to be hearing about those things, if you guys want to tap in and find out, that's going to be the place where you would find out because I'm not putting any of that stuff on Twitter.
Absolutely. Twitter's a dangerous place right now, Jason. Oh, yeah. if you haven't noticed. So what is your take on the situation? And we'll start here and then we'll work our way through it. Obviously, it's dominating the draft conversation because there is a potential now that the San Francisco 49ers are picking in the first round when we didn't even think that was going to be a possibility. Do you think that's a possibility that the 49ers find themselves in the first round starting tomorrow based on a Deebo Samuel trade? If you had to put a percentage and kind of what's your vibe of the situation?
I mean, I had it at 50-50 when the official trade request came out. After all of that, it's more just posturing in terms of, Deebo sent out a tweet talking about nobody knows what's going on and all those things. The feeling more and more as this gets along is that he's closer to being moved at this point, I would feel. I mean, again, I'm just speculating. I've only dropped what somebody just told me. I have no other news in terms of knowing what's going on. But when you read the tea leaves, when you see what's going on, all of those things, it feels more and more likely and that this team is setting you up they're softening the blow a bit. That's the way that I would say. Like, you see some respected members of the media talking about, well, it's basically, I want to paraphrase, and the way I read the tweet from Matt Mayoka was more about, well, come get him now. Like put the offers out, right? And that's where we are at this point. It was always a possibility. I start to feel now that it's a bit more likely than I thought before. And I went from 50-50 to now about 70-30 at this point, but wouldn't be shocked at all. And this is how I'm getting good at this media thing. I say that I think it's a certain percentage, and then I say I wouldn't be shocked at all if he stays. So that's how I'm getting my media on, right? It's almost like you're saying something.
You got to hedge, right? You got to hedge your bet.
Of course. Always give yourself an out, but as of right now, I've got it at 70-30. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if he stays here if the offer isn't correct, because King's ransom, Godfather offer, all of those things have been talked about. And when we talked about trades, potential trades, that's why I said ridiculous things like 4 and 10 and 38. You know why? Because that's the haul that I believe is the King's ransom. Obviously that's not something that probably would happen, but that's what I felt I would take for somebody like Deebo Samuel. But if the relationship's too far gone and they feel like they can't make it work, then unfortunately they're just at an impasse right now.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit, and let's kind of bring it back and kind of dive in a little bit deeper. We've heard reports from Matt Lombardo that the Jets offered this big haul for Deebo. That is not true at all. Per sources. We've also heard that, well, maybe the 49ers are leaning towards keeping Deebo. And kind of as we've discussed too throughout this process, why would they say anything other than they were going to keep Deebo Samuel? Why would they make it known that they're trying to trade Deebo Samuel? Because let's face it, if a trade doesn't work out, that just looks like a really ugly situation. Obviously, we know Deebo has asked for a trade. There's no walking that back. But once you have the team come out and say it, right, it gets a little bit spicy there. You talked about Matt Mayoko basically coming out. Well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there isn't a trade that's going to play out. Do you feel like, if you speculation time, that this is posturing? They are likely moving towards a deal. And right now, essentially, what is happening through the media is they're trying to get the most possible value for a trade. And it still could be true, right? Deebo doesn't get traded. But it does feel like with the way the media is going back and forth, they're getting this. No, they're not getting this. Well, we might not trade him. Well, they still could trade him. Doesn't that typically we've seen these trends happen in the past, right? Where that's the calm before the storm. That's where the rubber meets the road. At least that's how I'm seeing it. How are you seeing it?
Well, that Mayoko tweet for me felt like the bat signal. Like, if you want him, come get him, and come correct. That's exactly what that felt like. Again, this game, this negotiation. Again, we've talked about it. A lot of people have issues with the way Deebo has handled it, but you guys don't have issues with the 49ers putting stuff through the media. And I'm not just talking about Matt Mayoko. I mean, they dropped something to Adam Schefter, which said, hey, the offer's on the table. He just doesn't want to sign it. So the game is being played on both sides right now at this point. For me, when I read that Mayoko tweet, it read to me like, hey, you want your man? Come get him. Come correct. Bring those offers. And then when you start to put that out there, I'm not the only one who's thinking these things. Well, now maybe another team starts to overpay because they believe there's more teams involved now at this point. So that's what I felt about it. But this game of like playing things through social media and then having the 49ers push things through media outlets, not just their own. I don't know if you have a problem with one, you have to have a problem with both, right, at this point, as we're watching this thing develop right before our eyes with many respected people putting their thoughts out there as well too. How much of that is their thoughts? How much of that is something that someone gave them? And that's what we're kind of watching happen right now as we're getting closer to day one tomorrow.
Absolutely. So if you had to let's play both sides of it, and let's start with a potential trade. What does that trade need to look like for you to be considered a win for the 49ers, a win for Deebo Samuel, and a win for the team who's trading for him? What's the destination? What's the haul look like? And what's the contract potentially look like if something were to go down? Because, right, all those three things have to be aligned in order for it to go through. Otherwise, the 49ers kind of hold the leverage and just say, you know what, we're not going to trade you. And then Deebo Samuel has nothing to do because it's either hold out and lose all your money or play and have to fight for a contract this year rather than getting the extension like you wanted.
Right. And I think the obvious answer is the Jets. 10 is where you get started, 10 and 38, and they have the money to get it done. Obviously, Saleh and all of those guys that he knows over there, I think that they give him the money that he's asking for in that Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs bracket. They have the money to do it. It makes the most sense. But I want to throw out another team that I feel like if it doesn't work out here, and depending on who's on the board, which kind of lines up with what someone told me about the on the clock thing, the Baltimore Ravens at 14. Now, the Ravens are on the clock, right? And that's the last place that I would say the 49ers are at. Now, what if one of these wide receivers, these top three guys, because I've got it, Wilson, Williams, and Olave, what if one of those guys are sliding at that point, and then Baltimore is able to move for Deebo, make the deal for him, and then the 49ers are in a spot where, hey, we played our hand, we were waiting for a team to be on the clock. Now there's potentially a guy that you can step right in with. And if it's one of those three guys, I could see the 49ers doing it there too. So the Ravens are like the last destination. I feel like after 14, it's highly unlikely or the chances of a Deebo trade drop dramatically because of one, landing spots, and two, the value, the pick value. when you're at the top 15, you can't ask for anything more than that. And we've heard whispers about this draft and everyone trying to move back and things like that. It's not exactly top heavy, whatever the hell that means. But the Ravens feel like a team that is a good fit. And potentially, if the 49ers play the board, see how it lies, let's just say Chris Olave has slidden, which I don't think, or slidden, that's not even a word, it slides or something like that, then you can see the 49ers say, hey, man, we need to make a move. Joe Klatt literally just talked about something with Jordan Elliott about how Olave wins down the field and finds spots in play action and how natural of a fit that is in San Francisco. And I love the kid. We had a chance to talk with him for a little bit. I think he's well suited to just be an impact player day one, would be an absolute complementary piece to Brandon Ayuk. So 14 is kind of where I'm at. But again, it all depends on how the board falls, who has slid. We've seen surprises right now. Currently, Trayvon Walker is the odds-on favorite to be the number one pick. Many people had Aiden Hutchinson picked up. Something about what's going on, the evaluation process has him sliding a little bit more. People aren't as bullish on him. So the draft has all these sorts of unpredictable moments, GMs who love their guys, things like that. So that's what the person who told me just a little while ago about being on the clock, that correlates for me. And I think that there's a lot of ways that you can look at it. And I think that's really, really a smart way.
Because waiting on the clock ultimately makes sure you get the best offer, right? Because we talk about it all the time. All these deals and negotiations, there's deadlines in place for a reason. Everything that's happening up until the deadline is what? Posturing. It's, playing hardball, like, oh, we're not going to meet you in the middle. But at the end of the day, we know that last leg of the race, that's where everything gets done seemingly in the NFL. So that makes a lot of sense with what you're hearing there at the draft, is that maybe we don't hear anything today, because it does feel like today's posture day. Today feels like the day where, hey, yesterday's price ain't today's price. If you want to get Deebo Samuel, you got to come get him, because we've made it clear. John Lynch came out and said we can never envision trading Deebo Samuel. We hear multiple reports the 49ers aren't going to trade Deebo Samuel. Why would they? He's a star. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. Do you think that's a potential outcome, that they do keep him, or do you think it's just so fractured at this point that they have to move on from him? And it's not a question of what kind of haul they'll get. They'll get a haul for him. It's just what's the highest at this point. But do you see a world that exists where Deebo does come back and plays for the San Francisco 49ers in 2022?
I do. Again, range of outcomes is just,
Right.
It doesn't seem likely at this point. But I want to point out a few things that have been said. Matt Mayoko said something about it being personal. Richard Sherman on his podcast said something about he understands Parag's haggling, but that Deebo's taking it particularly personal. So again, maybe it is a little too fractured. Maybe it doesn't have to do with money. Maybe it is about him knowing his word. That's the stuff that when people get all riled up, he's disrespecting the fan base, he's disrespecting this organization. No. Take care of yourself. And if you feel disrespected, don't let yourself go back to a situation where you feel you're being undervalued. I don't understand why fans take these things so personally. Deebo Samuel's not doing anything to you. He's doing something for himself. And that's the thing that I think is a little bit lost with all the people jumping out the window about, oh, well, he's disrespecting me. He's not disrespecting you in any way. And I would advise that you maybe take a step back from that a little bit, because you're taking this awful personal in the same way that Matt Mayoko said he's taking the negotiations personal, and the way that Richard Sherman said he feels like he's taking it personal, because we understand Parag punches in the computer, that's the number, and that's it. And if not, get out. So
Absolutely. And I when you look at some of these 49er fans, I mean, they got 49ers tatted on their chest. They got 49ers tats. Like, they are invested, and they feel like they're a part of this team at a certain point. So there is going to be a part of the fan base that is slighted, that Deebo Samuel doing this to the 49ers, if so facto, means you're doing it to me. Means, hey, you can't leave me. This is my team. Can't do this to me. So it's pretty interesting to watch. The dynamic is crazy. Multiple things can be true, but it does appear that Deebo Samuel, and I've heard it from someone in his camp that has told me this situation is much deeper than anything that's being discussed. Will we ever figure out what that means? I don't know. We typically don't hear what goes on behind the scenes in these situations, which is why I think the whole Deebo Samuel being outward in the public has been a bit of a whirlwind. But kind of going back to the trade scenario, who do you want the potential trade to be with, and would you take if you get the trade compensation that you want?
I mean, if you get a top 10 pick and Kyle Hamilton sitting around, I don't know how you can kind of pass that up. But for me, when you look at the way the Kinlaw thing happened, I mean, Buckner gets moved and they immediately fill that with Kinlaw. I wonder if the same sort of logic applies to the 49ers. And me, I'm a big wide receiver guy. I got three guys that I know are can't miss guys. That's it. And I've got a guy right there at number 4, Sky Moore, that I love, but he's not a can't miss like
Mhm.
Jameson Williams, like Garrett Wilson, like Chris Olave. It would be one of those three guys that I would be ecstatic to have on this roster. I understand the Jameson Williams thing comes with the ACL injury. There are so many advances in modern medicine and the way that the guys bounce back. That is less and less a concern for me. The guy is a speed demon, and who's gonna be able to pair that? Trey Lance. Now, we talked about Chris Olave and what Joe Klatt told us, and it was about how well he does in play action, finding space deep down the field, also behooves Trey Lance. So for me, those are the first three guys that I know for a fact can jump up and play day one, kind of change the dynamic of it. And Joe Klatt said these words out of himself when we talked about Traylon Burks. Said these words out of his mouth. Traylon Burks is operating in the same way that Deebo is, and he said these words. Let's be real, that's an extension of the run game. And a lot of people don't like when that's said because they feel like it's disrespecting Deebo, but that's true. It's very true that those throws there are essentially runs, and you're
Mhm.
getting the ball in the hands of your best ball carrier and
Mhm.
playmaker. So for me, it's one of those top three guys. The offense won't be run in the same exact way, and with those three guys or one of them, it definitely can't be run that way because they're such great route runners and they're going to cause so many matchup problems for everyone else. So for me, I don't know if the 49ers employ the same strategy of taking one out, at the position and then just going right back and filling that position, or maybe they have someone in their mind that is on the board. But again, a lot of that has to do with on the clock, how the board's falling, who's going to be there, and what the 49ers feel that they can get that would better this team. Me, I'm just a wide receiver guy. I would love to see one of those three in red and gold, but I don't know if the 49ers have that same sort of thought process, even though there is a precedent with the Javon Kinlaw, DeForest Buckner situation.
Absolutely. I got a two-parter question coming for you because I'm in the same boat as you, Chris Olave Hive. Why seemingly does it feel like he's getting slandered left and right? And two, do you think there is a situation that exists where the 49ers galaxy brain this, potentially get the top 10 pick and then trade back? Do you think that is a potential to get more top 50, top 75 picks?
I think so too. And we've heard a lot of chatter around here about how people want to move back and it's not exactly top heavy and nobody really wants to be around this top 10 because there's so many guys and so many value players that you can have in those first 2 days. So I could definitely see that happening with the trade back. And with Olave and Williams, it's the injury thing. Everybody's just freaking out over an ACL injury. It's not like, any players ever bounce back from an ACL injury. He's 20
Right.
something years old. I think he's going to be fine. And with Olave and Wilson, I think it's height and their build. Everybody's talking about how skinny Chris Olave is and things like that. I mean, that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, guys win in different ways.
You see
There's
Justin
guys that are
Jefferson, is he a super thick-bodied wide
yeah,
receiver? I don't think
and
so.
and then there's guys who are huge and that's exactly what you want. They can't separate and things like that.
Right.
Again, different guys win in different ways. I don't want to hear about their build. If they can win and they can do it at the next level, it doesn't matter to me. Maybe you have concerns about long-term longevity, but then you go right back to the same things that people are saying about Deebo Samuel, and it's like you might have those concerns with every single player, no matter their build. The biggest guys could be injured all the time. The smallest guys might play 10, 12 years and never miss a game. It's just
Yep.
how the game works. So I think that people are starting to overthink things now at this
Mhm.
point, and everybody's trying to be smarter than the next guy, and everybody's trying to push back and look and say, well, remember when I said this? Look at how
Right.
smart I am. That's exactly where we are before day one.
I feel you on that one. It's you can either play or you can't. Like let's face it, it's that simple. I think a lot of people get real wrapped up in certain ancillary things that really don't matter at the end of the day. But it is interesting to see how that goes. Love that we're both on the same page with Olave. I would love that pick. I think that would be a phenomenal replacement if we had to go that route. But, maybe to deviate a little bit from a little bit of Deebo Samuel talk, I'm sure we'll come back to it somehow, one way, shape, or another. 61 is still there. We know that for a fact. We know the 49ers have picked 61. John Lynch came out yet again earlier this week and did not put any type of confidence, at least into myself, and I know other 49er fans feel this way too, about the return of Alex Mack. Could those two things be synonymous? Could we? And we've seen the San Francisco 49ers draft for need quite a bit. They typically steer away from BPA. They just go what we need right now. Do you see a situation where the San Francisco 49ers are taking 61 center or interior offensive lineman at 61 because the potential of Alex Mack retiring?
For sure, and I think that's the pressing need right now at this point. The safeties that everyone loves to fill in day one, or I don't think that they'll be there at 61. And I'm talking about Kyle Hamilton, Jalen Petrie, Jaquan Brisker is getting a bunch of run right now at this point. And I think that it's such a stark change from what we heard John Lynch say at the combine. He was literally asked about Alex Mack, and he said, "Yeah, we think he's going to come back." Literally heard nothing, and then that quote was directly. It made me feel like it's not a chance that he's actually going to come back at this point. I mean, it's already April, and this kind of feels like a Joe Staley telling the 49ers, "I'm retiring," and then they can, make their move for Trent Williams behind the scenes. So maybe Alex Mack is doing them a favor. I would put it that it's highly unlikely he comes back. And you're right. The 49ers do absolutely draft for need. It might be Cole Strange season. There's a bunch of other guys. And I would love that just, again, for namesake and things like that. So, yeah, I could totally see it. If the 49ers don't move Deebo Samuel, then that feels that either one, they're dug in and they're just going to they won the staring contest for now, or they feel that they can repair it and they feel like they have a good grasp on how to repair it and they won't have to address that again. So then that would put them in firmly right there on the inside interior line, offensive line. I'm sorry.
So we've done a really good job, Jason, and it might be a good time to incorporate a certain player back into the conversations because we've been kind of pushing it off. His face says it all. He knows it's coming. His face says it all. He knows it's coming. I listened to an interview today on 95.7 The Game. Shout out Bonte and Shasky on the morning roast. They had Michael Lombardi. I didn't know this, but he was in the room with the Patriots organization in the front office when they drafted number 10, right? Jimmy Garoppolo. He said today that he believes that Jimmy Garoppolo and his contract is tying up a lot of things behind the scenes, more so than it's being led on. Do you think that Jimmy still being here is having he even specifically said that he thought it had a direct correlation with Deebo Samuel and his deal and stuff like that? Do you think Jimmy Garoppolo's situation is causing a lot of issues behind the scene regarding money that's tied up and things like that? And do we potentially see Jimmy get traded during the draft, or is this a wait and see type of thing regarding Jimmy Garoppolo?
So the money's an issue, but I would like to propose this. What if the 49ers came to Deebo Samuel and said, "Hey, listen, we'd love to start talking, but kind of got this guy that we got to deal with in terms of the money right here. So you might have to wait." And then you're Deebo Samuel and you're like, "Well, why do I have to wait? And why should I wait?" But again, it's less about the money because the cap hit won't affect this year for Deebo Samuel. When you do the extension, his cap hit is going to relatively be low. So it's not necessarily the money, but the situation has probably put the 49ers in a position where they say, "Hey, Deebo, we'll get to you, man. We still got to deal with this a little bit." And for him, why would you want to say, "Hey, yeah, yeah, I'll sit around and wait"? No. He wants his money now, and I don't blame him. So I do think there is some truth to that because there has been rumblings about that from people that I really trust that have been saying that, hey, John Lynch probably came to them. They came to Deebo and said, "Hey, here's the starting offer." Probably didn't like that. And also, we can't really talk about this until we get Jimmy Garoppolo off this roster as well, too. So I definitely think there's some truth to that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be interesting. Do you think he gets moved, or do you think they have to wait and see until he can actually throw the football before you can trade for a player who can't pass physical right now?
I don't know. I don't think he does at this point. I just don't see the world. I mean, right now there's a lot of rumblings about the Panthers trying to move out of 6. And again, it seems like almost everybody in the top 10 is gun shy to stay in the top 10 for some reason,
Right.
which we'll either look back on and say, what the hell were they thinking? Or this is why they get paid more money than we do to make these decisions. But for me, where's the destination? Carolina has talked about, well, maybe, and they're not saying anything. They're like, maybe, and we might draft the quarterback, or we have our guy, and it's like all conflicting things. And again, smoke chasers are looking at all of those lines and trying to figure out where exactly is the line that says that there's still a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo could be there. And then you have this report that comes out that says Carolina doesn't view Jimmy Garoppolo as much of a massive upgrade over Sam Darnold, which he is an upgrade. Let's 100% be clear. Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Sam Darnold, and I'm not here to argue that with anyone. That's an objective fact. He is better than Sam Darnold. But I think that part that you really need to focus on is that Carolina doesn't view him as such an upgrade that they're willing to keep both of them or possibly make a move for draft capital. So I would say no at this point, but I would love to be wrong on this one. I promise you I'd love to be wrong.
I think we would all love to be wrong because I think I hold the same sentiment as you. It does kind of feel like we're still in a waiting period with Jimmy, and it's going to be that for a while now. So we're going to find out what happens.
And don't forget, foot the bill. I'll foot the bill all right for you. I'm going to take it and kick it out of here. That's footing the bill. Come on.
I love it, dude. Keith Murphy says Deebo seems like the type of person who looked at the initial offer and was so insulted he told his agent, F him, hang up. How do you feel about
Keith's
that?
onto it. Yeah, Keith's onto it, man. I mean, they obviously didn't come correct. And again, we have a track record of this. Fred Warner didn't talk about this because Fred is Fred, and that's how he moves. He's not going to operate in that way. But we found out later on with George Kittle's negotiation that the first offer by his agent, these are his words, St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And that didn't start off well. But what if Deebo has no intention of going through the same process because he was so insulted by that offer and because of the idea that he has to wait? And I understand everybody knows that as we get closer to training camp, that's usually when extensions are done, especially when guys have to be on the field, mandatory mini camp, things like that, because now the CBA will get you fined and fined and fined. There's nothing you can do about it. But I think Keith is spot on right here. And I think that kind of lines up with a lot of the things that I've heard from people.
So this is my gut, and this is no information or nothing behind it. This is just kind of my gut of how I see it happening. I see Deebo Samuel, and we know Deebo. I think Deebo Samuel is handling his contract negotiation just like he plays on the football field. He's going to run through your face. Like that's just, he only has one speed. That's one of the things that I've tracked with Deebo since before he was a 49er. He is who he is, and he operates that way. And you can absolutely respect that. I kind of see it as a situation where Deebo Samuel looks at the Defoe situation, looks at the Kittle situation, looks at the Fred situation. You can even go back to our good friend Robbie Gould and how he was handled in those types of things. And you start to put together a pattern. You can even go as far back as Frank Gore and how Frank Gore talked about his negotiations, which he sat in with this group. That this group has not changed in regards to, at least from our understanding of how the negotiations work. Do you feel like there's a world that exists where he already knew what was coming his way? And I'm also kind of thinking that in his mind, he's like, we understand he put his body on the line to play wide back. And I think he loved playing wide back. And then we also heard those reports, well, he doesn't want to play wide back anymore. I kind of have the suspicion that Parag or whoever is running these negotiations used him playing wide back against his negotiation when Deebo Samuel felt like, I put this team on my back and I took us to the NFC Championship. I put my contract stuff aside. I did it all to make sure this team won. And you're going to use the wide back situation against me to get me at a lower price. I kind of, again, this is just a sense, like, they threw that out at him. He said, nope. Like, I already know how you handle this. I've seen it with other players. And then it happened to him. And he just said, I'm not even going to go down this road. Get me out of here. Do you kind of feel like that could be a range of outcome with this situation?
100%. And listen to what Richard Sherman said. Remember, Richard Sherman negotiated his contract by himself. And that podcast, I implore you guys to listen to it when he talks about, he knows exactly how this operation works and how this goes. And he understands, he said the word haggling. That was the word about Parag Marate and how this works. So yes, first of all, you don't show up with wide receiver top money, right? Off the bat. So let's
Right.
just say that the offer comes in at $19 million. You're already insulted by that. But I
Right.
think Deebo had in his mind, you got to have me in that 20 to 25 range. And I need a little bit of extra money too because of how you use me and how I'm putting my body on the line. So when you put into the factor of when we talked about how he's being used and what we think is going on and why he's upset, I think him being used in that way. Here's another thing I'll point out. And this is somebody who I really, really trust that told me this. Deebo Samuel was on his way to shattering records, receiving yards. Okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they start to take back the targets and use the running game. How much of that has to do with Kyle Shanahan needing explosives? I'd say a fair amount.
Yes.
But how much of that has to do with the 49ers curbing his numbers? So when you come to the table, well, you only 1,400 yards. He was on pace for 1,800. What does 1,800 get you, right? So they did what was good for the scheme and what they needed to do, but how much of that was, well, not only can he help us there, but it'll help us in this situation. And I think that's what we talk about when you hear about Deebo Samuel saying he is not happy with his role on the team because he feels you used me. And you can really watch him limp off the field in Green Bay and many games where he carried the team on his back. But then how much of that was to slow down the negotiations and slow down the price in their mind, even though Deebo knows exactly what he's worth. So, yeah. I mean, look, you guys are all mad, not you guys all. There's plenty of you that are mad at Deebo. When are you going to start getting mad at this operation that kind of is doing these things too, right? So who's disrespecting who? Is Deebo Samuel disrespecting you as a fan? I'd say no. But was he disrespected by this organization and we have its pattern? I'd say so. So again, I think that's a lot. That's a lot to do with it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm in the mindset again. I've kind of spoken about it. I don't think that necessarily Parag may have went about this the way that he needed to with a player like Deebo Samuel. And you can also agree that maybe the way Deebo's handled the social media side of it isn't the best either. But that doesn't mean one is only mutually exclusive in this relationship. Obviously, Deebo felt slighted and slighted so much so that he was going to go scorched earth on the 49ers, which is exactly what he's done, at least from the fan perspective. So I don't know if we'll ever know what happened. I don't know if we'll ever understand what deep situation is occurring behind the scenes and things like that. Do you think, hold on one second, I got a super chat here. Let me get this up really quickly. Get better
drunky. I like it. I love it.
He says, offer Deebo 5 years, $150 million deal, $80 million guaranteed. Only stipulation: Deebo has to fire his agent while John and Kyle watch.
Man, Get Better Drunky's playing hardball here.
Yeah, seriously. Do you think a deal like that would ever exist for Deebo Samuel, even if he were to get traded and a team were to take on his contract? Would they ever pay him $80 million guaranteed?
I mean, I would love that. And if he would accept that, that would be perfect. And then I would point out to the people who say that they don't know if he can continue to last that long is that 5-year deal would essentially be a 2-year deal where he gets his guaranteed money. And then year to year, you would be moving and seeing how things go in that way, which everybody talks about it being to the benefit of the team. But it's also to the benefit of the player, because if the player outperforms his contract, let's say Deebo goes on to be better 2 and 3 years down the line, he has a chance to negotiate again and get more money. So I think it benefits both sides the way that these contracts are structured in terms of 2 years are really where it's at. And then after that, it's year to year. So for people who look at it negatively, like, oh, the 49ers are being cheap or they're trying, I think that it's a way for both players, for both sides to have a way to gain leverage and also find themselves in a good spot money-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. If he got 5 years, 150, 80 million guaranteed, I don't think you're not going to fire agent at that point. You're going to give him I
think that, the agent's the one who got you that with
all
the
exactly.
and all those other things. So yeah,
like John and Kyle have nothing to do with it. They're just kind of have to sit by and be like, crap, we kind of got in this situation.
Like, it would be like that scene in Anchorman when, like, Ron comes off after cursing and he's like, Ron, I've got to fire you. He's like, well, I'm going to fire you. Bing, bong, boom. That's exactly what his agent would say. His agent would say the same. Like, he wouldn't even believe him.
Like, you're not firing me, my guy. You got to give me my commission first.
Bing, bong, boom.
Bing, bong, boom. Great reference. Amazing.
I love it.
This guy is on point with the references. I swear to God, it's unbelievable.
Hey, my phone is getting closer to dying because we're out here and everything. I probably got like maybe like 5-10 more minutes. You can keep it going if you
No,
want
that's
and take a
perfect.
bunch of
That's
questions.
perfect.
Yeah.
Let's get to a couple more of these super chats again. If you guys do want to have any questions, we're kind of only taking questions right now based on super chat. So if you want to get those in, get them in. Keith Murphy says, I think Deebo knows that this may be his last best time to get a payday that he wants and deserves. So get everything he's doing right now. Would you agree with that?
100%, and especially when you look at the beating that he took as well, and the other people in that bracket, right? Like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and why wouldn't you ask for that amount of money? I mean, literally, the numbers that Deebo Samuel put up this past year are unprecedented, meaning no one's ever done it. And that's when you need to cash in as well, too. We also know the salary cap is going to go up and things like that, but it behooves every single player to get their money as fast as they can because there is no guarantee day-to-day what's going to happen with your body and how you know how cruel this game is.
Absolutely. You got to get it now. And we know how hard and physical Deebo plays. He's got to get the money now. And it's the best opportunity. If the 49ers aren't going to get it to him, he's got to get it from someone else, right? So we'll see how it goes. It will be something that will continue to be a moving target. I'm going to pull the chat and then I'm going to ask you. Bold take time, bold take prediction. What happens to Deebo Samuel? Is he a San Francisco 49er? Is he a Jet? Is he a Dolphin? Drop it in the chat, spam it in the chat. Make sure you smash that like button, sub to both Jason and my channel. I want to see what you guys think. What happens with Deebo? Is he a 49er or is he getting traded? And then I will pose the same question to you. Of course, we've talked about all the different ranges of outcomes, what we're thinking, what we're hearing, what we're speculating. If you had to put your money on it, what do you think happens come Thursday night?
Ultimately, I think that the 49ers retain Deebo Samuel because they won't get the offer that they're looking for in terms of Godfather offer, King's ransom, anything like that. And then the question becomes, is the relationship salvageable? And what happens going forward? Because then the trade is even more unlikely considering you didn't get something in the first round this year, and nobody's going to take a first round next year for Deebo Samuel. It would take something massive in terms of a bunch of players, but then again, we're right back at the same cap space. So it's ultimately, I think that the first round comes and goes on Thursday with Deebo Samuel still being a part of the 49ers. That is my best hedge bet at this point, just because it would take something massive and maybe somebody panics while the 49ers are on the clock, which is what I've heard today. Well, I mean, while that team's on the clock and they go to the 49ers and they make that move. But for me, I think ultimately he stays and they have to figure out a way to get this done. Or Deebo Samuel goes full Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and just does not show up and just makes this, harder and harder going forward. So it's got to be on the sense of what the 49ers think about the situation and what they think they can attain or they can get done here.
Absolutely. I saw someone in the chat say it, and I kind of agree with it. My heart wants him to be a 49er. I don't want him to go anywhere. I want him to be here. I want to win. I want this team to win Super Bowls, get that damn sixth ring, put all this drama to the side. But will that happen? Will that be the outcome? I don't know. I'm leaning towards a trade, but again, there's a lot of moving parts. He has to agree to a contract. They have to agree to a compensation, all those types of things. So there is a strong likelihood that he doesn't get moved because ultimately nothing comes to fruition. And then we have to deal with that whole situation. Well, how do we mend this and make this work? So it's going to be a very, very interesting Thursday night. I don't know if anything is going to come out tonight, but I think we both agree, right? The deadline is the first round. If they get out the first round, it feels much less likely that a trade will come to fruition, right?
Absolutely. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit up these events. I'm going to be dressed incognito. I'll probably put on the glasses and a beard so nobody sees me. And just like anytime somebody's talking, I'm just going to get a little closer, see what I hear. And yeah. Hey, you're a little too close. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, didn't know that. So
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for hopping on, Jason, and giving us your insight and the stuff that you're hearing on the floor. Obviously, too, if you guys want to get more info, you know where to go. hit the link on the ticker below. Jason said he will be putting all the information that he's hearing into there. So make sure you tap in with him. Make sure you're also, because we are doing the dual stream, make sure you hit a like on this video. Make sure you hit a like on that video. Sub to both channels. And it's going to be an interesting draft, Jason. It's going to be a lot of twists and turns for us 49er fans. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it comes out. But again, appreciate you coming on here and talking all Deebo Samuel stuff with us, man.
Appreciate you guys. Shout out to everybody in here. Spicy Squad, Sourdough Squad. Make sure you guys hit that link on the bottom. I promise you, anything that I hear that I won't be putting on Twitter because I don't want to hear somebody say source or anything like that, I will be sending to you guys, and you guys will be able to respond to me and be able to talk back with me, so we can talk a little bit further if you have any other further questions. But appreciate everybody. Make sure you sub both channels, like this video, and hit the notification bell. I'll be going live in the media workroom during the draft as well too. So if something happens, I'll have an instant reaction to the Deebo Samuel trade if it does happen.
Absolutely. All right. Appreciate you, Jason. I'm going to stick on for a little bit, but we'll catch you on the other side. Maybe we'll talk after the draft, during the draft. We'll figure it out, but lots of
Look at this guy.
Hey, let's go. Let's go. Look at the guy.
This man is working. This man is working. I saw him over there. He's talking to people off the record about certain things, man. Listen, man, you got to stop playing with Jordan Elliott, man. Stonks through the roof. And the not stonks thing that just happened, Melvin Gordon, I can't believe my Javonte Williams is never going to be unleashed. This is truly the worst day of my life, I promise you.
R.I.P. Javonte Williams usage.
No.
But that's a conversation for another day. Appreciate you guys. Say what's up to Jordan for me. Keep killing it out there on the draft floor, man.
All right. Peace.
All right, man. Shout out to Ponte for coming on. Always fun. Let me see. I think I'm on Aponte's channel, so I'm gonna bring his down. I don't want to be streaming on his channel, so if you guys do want to pop over, feel free to come over. I'll talk about it a little bit more. I got a couple more minutes, but if you guys want to take off, feel free. But ultimately, let me see how this works. Actually, I don't know if I can. Whatever. We'll keep it rolling for a little bit. We're on Aponte's channel, so appreciate you guys. So what do we think is going to happen? Do we think Deebo is ultimately going to get moved? Do we think Deebo stays? And what happens if he stays? Because it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. I'm definitely not Aponte. My beard is a little bit more red, as you can see. We just had Aponte on. If you are hopping in, we are on both channels. But again, make sure you are liking and subscribing to both. All that good stuff. A lot of people saying Deebo ain't getting traded. Don't trust the media. I mean, Deebo said he was getting traded. Like, that came from Deebo. So is that a media thing, or is that Deebo saying that he wants to get traded? Because Deebo said, called Jeff Darlington and said, I've requested a trade. So I believe that's real. The trade is potentially going to happen. It's just, is someone going to give the amount that the 49ers need to make it happen? And again, the 49ers are kind of in a good spot. They have all the leverage in the world right now in regards to this, because ultimately they don't have to trade Deebo. That's the best part of this, is that they don't have to. They could say, Deebo, we understand you're upset. We understand all these types of things are going on behind the scenes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, we control your rights. You are under contract. We do not have to trade you. So ultimately, the 49ers have the ultimate card in this hand, because when you strip everything down, Deebo doesn't have leverage other than using social media to his advantage, which is why we understand why he's done so. But ultimately, as it stands right now, the San Francisco 49ers don't have to budge. They could look at every single offer that comes into their inbox and say, sorry, No, thank you. Deebo Samuel is going to be a San Francisco 49er in 2022 and beyond. We are going to still continue to work towards a deal. We are still going to try to get things in a spot where Deebo feels comfortable. We're going to try to get this thing back on the right side. So the 49ers have all the leverage right now. So not only do they have all the leverage, but then if you have teams bidding against each other, you have the Ravens, you have the Jets, you have the Dolphins, you have the Chiefs, you have the Eagles, you have any freaking imaginable team who needs a Deebo Samuel. Again, we've talked about this at length. They used to do draft segments heading into 2020, heading into 2021 were literally called Finding Deebo because people want to find the next Deebo Samuel. And Daniel Jeremiah, I believe, went on the Rich Eisen show and actually had a great point speaking specifically to that notion. No one has been able to find Deebo Samuel since they started rolling those segments. So again, you're dealing with a player in his prime who's under contract, who's a unicorn, he's one of one. They've been trying to find the next Deebo Samuel for 2 seasons. Have we found the next Deebo Samuel? Not even close, because Deebo Samuel, and what makes Deebo Samuel so special is his mentality, is his heart, is the way he plays this game. He plays the game with every ounce of his soul, and you can feel that. So not only do the 49ers have the leverage to keep Deebo, but Deebo is a legitimately unique player. And in the midst of a time period where the wide receiver market has skyrocketed, where the entire situation around wide receivers has seemingly rose. And when we talk about positional value, the positional value for the wide receiver position is immense right now. And not to mention, Deebo Samuel's half a running back. He could play behind the line of scrimmage. He can run the full route tree. Now, it might not be an amazing route tree, but he can do it as a receiver. I don't buy the fact that, oh, he's limited as a wide receiver. No, 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 no. He's legitimate as a wide receiver. He just plays the role in which he's asked to play and the role that he needs to fill. So not only that, everything is playing into the San Francisco 49ers hands, in my opinion, the team's hands right now, because again, they don't have to give up a thing. They could literally say, shout out the Jets. Appreciate you. We love you, Saleh. We love you, LaFleur. Hey, we love you, McDaniel, down there in South Beach, but we aren't giving you Deebo. Deebo was never for sale. Deebo was never for sale. That's something that he self-proclaimed. But ultimately, we know how it works. You're under contract. So the San Francisco 49ers, just like Jason talked about, and again, if you're seeing me on Jason's channel, we were running the dual stream state of the franchise. He's at the draft, so he's got moving to do, but I just wanted to kind of keep it going for a little bit. If you're a little bit confused to see why you have a ginger beard on Aponte's channel, that's why. But make sure you subscribe to Aponte's channel if you aren't already. But really, what it comes down to is Deebo doesn't have a ton of leverage. The 49ers have all the leverage. And now potentially you're going to have a bidding war. So it's going to be wild, man. It's going to be wild. I think there's a situations that exists where teams are going to come to the table with a lot to offer for Deebo Samuel. But it's going to ultimately be up to the San Francisco 49ers to figure out, hey, if we are going to accept that or if we're not. So ultimately, it's going to leave itself for a wild Thursday night. So, anyways, it's gonna be fun. I don't know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a situation. It's gonna be a situation for sure. So we're gonna find out. Again, I've seen a lot of it in the chat. It's going multiple directions. A lot of fans think he's going to stay. A lot of fans think he's on the outs. It's going to be very, very interesting. And just like Cap says, the next 30 hours, get your popcorn ready because it could go in multiple directions. Multiple directions. Again, we got Niner by Nature saying Deebo will be a Niner for life. And they could and ultimately pay him. You could reference, again, it's been referenced to by multiple beat reporters. Hey, remember when Raheem Mostert did this? Hey, remember when Robbie Gould did this? Now, those situations aren't apples to apples comparisons. This is definitely a much different situation. However, this is a star, a superstar that everyone wants, that everyone covets, and everyone seemingly would pay. So it's going to be quite the ride. It's gonna be a ride, that's for sure. So it's been a wild draft season that feels like it's been taken over by rumors, taken over by drama and things like that. But it's I think we're close, guys. I think we're close. We're gonna have an answer one way or the other. Because again, you can drop it in the chat. You can let me know if the 49ers make it through the draft without Deebo Samuel getting traded, is he ultimately going to get traded? Because are the San Francisco 49ers going to take less of a hole for future picks? Again, you could take a Jaguars future first. But what happens if that first, which you think right now is going to be a number one overall, you send Deebo over there, all of a sudden Deebo Samuel and the Jaguars organization flip things around with Christian Kirk on that team as well, run by Trent Baalke, and they run the table and they make the playoffs. All of a sudden, that trade that you just made for those future picks are much less in value. So I don't know. I don't know if you think that he would get traded for futures. I don't think he would personally get traded for futures. So it's going to be super, super interesting to see. It's been funny though listening to some of these fan bases because again, shout out to Twitter. These the Twitter Spaces, man, are really proving to be a pretty cool tool for social media and really kind of getting the sense of certain fan bases or certain narratives within fan bases. When you talk to Jets fans or you land in a Jets space by these content creators that run these spaces on Twitter, they're going to give you their sense, their pulse of the team, and what they think the pulse of the fan base is. So, in regards to the Jets sound desperate. At least the fan base does. We know the fan base hasn't been to the playoffs in a long time. But I also think you could take that same thought process and probably apply it to Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas, GM for the Jets, probably wants to make some moves. Probably wants to get a star-studded wide receiver because as it's been reported, he is the GM who struck out on the star-studded wide receivers. He has struck out on Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper, you name it, Devontae Adams. He's missed. Whether you like it or not, Jets fan, you missed. You didn't get it. You didn't get the deal done. So guess what? Now a narrative is brewing. That Joe Douglas can't get a deal done. How does that look for good old Joe Douglas? How does that look for the New York Jets organization? The team that can't land a trade? Man, you guys must not be coming with those offers, man. You guys trying to penny pinch? You guys penny pinching? Huh, Wild Wave? You guys penny pinching? Why can't you get a deal done? What's the problem? Or are you just Jets being the Jets? There's a narrative. now building. And now the narrative is building. Well, look at the Jets, look at the Niners, look at Saleh, look at McFleur, LaFleur. Oh, it's a perfect mesh. They have the picks, they have the money, the need works. Deebo is a locker room guy. Deebo is a guy who is going to change a locker room. And guess what? The Jets need a culture because they don't have one. Is Zach Wilson your culture? No. So, hey, don't let McFleur. We're gonna call him McFleur from the rest of from the rest of the show. McFleur don't want to be shopping off that dollar menu anymore. He don't want to be shopping off that dollar menu anymore. He wants that Big Mac. He wants that Big Mac. So, what will they be willing to pay for that Big Mac? Huh? What are they going to pay? Because right now, word on the streets, McFleur, Joey Douglas can't get a deal done. They can't do it. He's striking out left and right. Maybe it's time to get a new GM. Maybe it's time to move on from Joe Douglas. That's the narrative. So then again, it works to the 49ers' benefit, ultimately in the end, whether they decide to move him or not. Because guess what? If the Jets don't get Deebo, think of this from a Jets fan perspective. Think of this from a Jets narrative perspective. All right. Let's say Deebo does get traded, right? Let's say Deebo gets traded. But let's say he gets traded to a division opponent of the Jets. Let's say for whatever miracle happens, they trade Deebo to the Patriots. They have a great relationship. The 49ers front office, the Patriots front office, John Lynch played for Belichick. Kyle's like a son to Belichick in a sense. Like, let's say Deebo, I don't think it's going to happen, but let's say Deebo goes to your division. Imagine the noise that's coming at Joe Douglas. You couldn't get a deal done, and you let him go to a division opponent. RIP Jets fan. I'm just saying. It's a range of outcome, right? So before my Jets fans in here get all hot and bothered about their situation, I think it's important for them to take a look in the mirror and remember, y'all are desperate. Y'all are desperate. We're not. You might look at the San Francisco 49ers situation and be laughing at, oh, look, Deebo doesn't want to play there. But ultimately, San Francisco 49ers hold all the cards. They don't have to trade Deebo. And if you want to come get Deebo, you better come correct for the San Francisco 49ers, or else you are going to be the team that missed out on getting yet again another wide receiver. And you're going to have to go take a shot in the dark at one of these unproven guys in the draft. So good luck to you guys. If you don't want to come get Deebo and you don't want to pay what it costs, then that's fine. We'll send him somewhere else, and then we'll laugh at the narrative that's spun about Joe Douglas after that, striking out yet again on another top tier wide receiver. So good luck with that, Jets. Hopefully you guys will be able to manage it one way or the other. So that was fun. That's a fun exercise. It's a fun exercise. It's fun when Jets fans think they have something to say around here. But it's okay, man. I feel it. We all can't have nice things. But it's okay. Don't feel like you guys need to come get Deebo. Don't feel like you have to give us multiple first rounds and multiple seconds. You'll just be the team that lost out on Deebo. So, hey, that's okay. We're not too concerned about that. Not too concerned about that at all. Hey, I like the Jets. I have nothing against the Jets, but hey, we're having some fun with some Jets fans in the chat who have some things to say. Overall, I like the Jets. Overall, I think the Jets are trending in the right direction. I like Elijah Mitchell. I keep saying Elijah Moore. He's one of my favorite players, young players right now. So it's a lot of fun, man. McFlurry. Sorry, guys. I apologize to any of Jason Aponte's loyal fans that have to listen to me go crazy right now. But shout out you guys. Shout out you guys. Remember, sub to Jason Aponte's channel. So this the narrative. Hey, this will be on the front page of the New York Times. Douglas can't get Zach Wilson a star wide receiver. Print it. You want that? You want that? You want that, Jets fans? I don't think you want that, Jets fans. Right on the front page, New York Times. Douglas can't get Zach Wilson a star wide receiver. Because there's not too many opportunities that do exist where a team in a situation like this, no matter what they give, they're perceived to win. That's the thing with the Jets right now. The Jets could theoretically give 4-10 and 38. Maybe they give all four. But there's a world that exists where the Jets give up a huge haul for Deebo Samuel and they are considered a winner. How often does that come around? Especially for a guy who's been striking out on wide receivers. You can spend on Deebo because you know why you can spend on Deebo? Not only is it a great fit for your organization, not only are you getting a superstar, not only are you getting a great guy, from a perception standpoint, you won't get roasted for that trade. You will be lauded for that trade. You will be applauded for having a sack and going and getting that deal done. So it's a rare situation where you can give up a huge haul, but still be considered a winner in the trade. You don't come across those trades very often. Again, what do we always talk about? Who won the trade? One team's getting roasted. Someone got raked over the coals. Again, in this situation, the 49ers are going to come out on top no matter what. They're either going to have Deebo or they're going to have a King's ransom. That's it. The Jets, on the other hand, they are going to look like losers if they can't pull this off. And Deebo gets traded to another team. So that's my Jets rant. Sorry. I had to go there. Really quick. But today's going to be a wild day. Tomorrow's going to be a wild day. Obviously, tons of posturing in the media right now by every team. All these reports, all this stuff, this player's going up, this player's going down. It's going to be constant here throughout the next couple hours. It is going to be wild. We got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Welcome to 49ers land. You can partake if you like, but let's remember to keep it respectful. And if you're not, we're gonna get you. Just kidding. Love you guys. That was fun. But anyways, it's gonna be a wild ride. It's gonna be a wild ride. But again, if I have to take my emotions out of it, the San Francisco 49ers, as you know, we look at the team. They are sitting in a really good spot. Yes, you might be confused. Why I'm on Aponte's channel right now. We did our state of the franchise. He's at the draft. Remember, if you do, I'm going to plug Aponte. He's not even here. If you want to hear what Aponte's hearing on the floor, you know what the vibe is. You tap in right here on Aponte. He's dropping all the nuggets that he's hearing at the draft. But we did do our state of the franchise episode. He had to take off, and if I think if I bring his stream down, I think it deletes it off his page. I don't know for a fact, but I don't want to risk it. I don't want to delete potentially um, the stream from his page. So I'm not going to write it out too long. But I did have some more things that I wanted to talk about. So if you're seeing this ginger beard instead of spicy aponte, that's why. So I'm hoping that the Jets come correct. I'm hoping that the Jets have a situation where they come get Deebo. Because if they come get Deebo, then I think the 49ers are walking away with an absolute haul. They're walking away with at least one top 10 pick, potentially both second round picks, maybe a player like Elijah Moore. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I just wouldn't want to be the GM to struck out on yet again another wide receiver. It's very interesting, too, because you had Zach Wilson today. Zach Wilson, Jets quarterback, franchise, right? Come out today and talk about his GM missing on wide receivers. We had Wilson come out today and talk about how his GM missed on Tyreek Hill. It is literally known. It is literally known when your franchise quarterback is talking about players that you didn't get that aren't on your team. That's not a good sign that you are headed in the right direction. So if I'm a Jets fan and I like Joe Douglas and I want to keep Joe Douglas around and maybe not risk imploding the franchise, because if you get another GM in there, they don't give two craps about the quarterback that you took at 3 years before they showed up. They don't care. So I'm just saying, man, you want to get Deebo, because if you don't, oh my goodness, those headlines are going to be wild in New York. And they're going to come after Joe Douglas. I swear to you, it's going to happen. Because again, this is one of those rare deals where you can give the world to the 49ers and you will still be considered a winner because you got a unicorn, you got a proven player, you got a one-of-one Deebo Samuel. For the Jets, it's a rare spot to where you can't really lose this trade, because you look at the fit, you look at the opportunity, the money that you have, you look at Joe Douglas striking out time after time after time. This feels like the last shot for Dougie. So hopefully he gets it done. NY Niner says, just want Jimmy gone. I don't give a F about Deebo at this point. Andres says, if Deebo does get traded, what are the chances the 49ers sign Julio Jones or OBJ? I would say if he gets traded, the chances of that happening go up exponentially. Do I think it's going to happen? Do I know what's going to happen? No, not necessarily. I think Julio Jones would have a better chance of landing on the 49ers than OBJ, just because OBJ has been hurt. He's coming off the ACL. I like the experience that Shanahan has with Julio Jones. You're probably getting Julio for cheap, even though you're probably getting OBJ for cheap. I would say Julio Jones becomes the more realistic option there, for sure. Jerome says, why are Jets fans over here trolling? I think Jets fans are realizing they've trolled the wrong account, but that's okay. We're here for all. Like, again, as long as you're not being disrespectful, we'll let it ride. But clearly, Clearly, whichever Jets fans came in here realized that they started to try to troll the wrong Ginger because, unfortunately, I know a lot about your team. I know a lot about the Jets' shortcomings and where they're lacking and why they're so desperate. So they came at the wrong one. It's okay. We will forgive them. We will give them a pass. We will give them a pass, particularly at this time. But it's okay. It's okay. We thrive off of it. We thrive. So if you guys have any other questions, get them in. We'll do a quick. We'll get some questions answered. If not, we'll get ready to shut this thing down. So if you do have any questions, feel like it. Ooh, I like this one. The Jets ain't fleecing a sweater. Ooh, I might have to borrow that one. That's a good one. Jets ain't fleecing a sweater. I like that one. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. I like it. Shout out Jets fans, man. Alex said, "Are there even Jets fans?" I think so. I think we'll see. We'll see, man. Oh, wait, isn't Miami in the same division of the Jets? Aren't they in the same division? Right? I think so. I think so. So imagine you lose Tyreek Hill. This is a Jets perspective. Imagine being the Jets and you lose Tyreek Hill to an in division opponent. Again, your quarterback talked about it today. Your quarterback talked about it today, Zach Wilson. Talked about losing out on a division opponent now. He talked about it today. And they talked about going full. He's like, yeah, we better be going full ham at Deebo Samuel. Your quarterback said that today. But could you imagine? Because do you guys remember? Do you guys remember when Deebo Samuel was eating lunch with McDaniel in Miami, and it caused a little bit of a stir? Remember? Well, that photo now has completely different context. That photo that Deebo Samuel posted of him eating lunch in Miami, where it just feels like, oh, it's old friends having lunch together. Well, I think like a week later, he requested a trade. It's like a week or two later, after having lunch with McDaniel, he requested a trade. We're hearing from Dolphins fans. We're hearing from Dolphins fans, whether it's accurate or not, that the Dolphins are in on Deebo. And wouldn't they be? So could you imagine being a Jets fan and you lose out Tyreek and Deebo? Oh, RIP Jets fans, man. We'll be thinking about you. We'll be thinking about you because if you lose, if the Miami Dolphins somehow swoop in and they get Tyreek and Deebo, prayers up to you, Jets fan, because it's going to be a long year for you. They might fire Dougie on the spot. They're like, man, you lost two. You lost out on two wide receivers, two to the same team in division. Jets. Oh gosh, the Jets fans would be wild. What if the 49ers got Waddle back? What if the 49ers got Waddle back? Do you think they do that? Maybe. Maybe not. Mark V says, Deebo, have fun getting the same blocks as you did with Kittle on the O-line, which is facts. I agree with that. He's not going to get the same blocking, but hey, he could also be used as a wide receiver a little bit more. He says, good riddance. He ain't no Jerry. P.S. Love your channel. Well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Appreciate the super chats. Let me see. Trying to catch up here. Hey, man, maybe one day. Maybe one day. But until then, I'm just gonna be keep doing my social media thing. I ain't in no hurry. I ain't in no hurry. I know how to evaluate talent. I know how to talk. I know how to preface narratives. I know how to work social media. Oh boy, I'm a monster. I'm a monster. I'm just having fun time. Just kidding. I'm not that great at all. But yes, it again. You Jets fan could. It's turned into a bit of a Jets. Oh, did we get someone on here? Let's go.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
Hey, just out here vibing,
Just
goofing,
vibing.
just goofing.
Let's go. We're out here roasting Jets fans, so I'm glad you could come on and kind of break us up a little bit.
Oh no, what's going on with Jets fans? I thought there was like an allegiance with like Jets and Niners fans for like.
Well, apparently not in this chat, but we had some fun. Again, we have Jordan Elliott from Niners Nation hopping on here. Jordan, how's it going, brother? How's the draft? What's the vibe like over there?
Hey man, it's been fun. It's hot. I mean, for our standards, you know what I mean. We're Bay Area guys. We don't do too good in the heat, so maybe I'm reacting a bit. It's hot. It's nice out. It's not too bad. It's been a fun day out here in Vegas. These draft prospects are out here. They're doing a community event where they're playing, throwing footballs around and doing drills with some youth football teams. You could see there's a lot of hands-on stuff these guys were doing. That was really cool, where they're kind of getting a chance to give back. And then we had some media availability. I had this superstar next to me this whole day. It's kind of hard to walk around with a man that's A-lister at 6'5" and not get noticed. So, it's been a fun time, man.
I love it, man. And look at just like this, we have a triple box going. Aponte's on. We got Elliott on. We got the superstars. We got the big hitters coming straight from the draft. Anything new you guys are hearing, or you guys just make your way back to the room?
We just got back to the room. We're about to go, head out, see what's up for the day. The big thing of the day now is this Warriors game. They got to clinch, so we're got to find a spot to watch that. But I don't know how much Jason got into, but we got some pretty good stuff from some of these draft prospects, man.
What are you hearing? Let us know. Spill the tea for us that are back at home, living vicariously through YouTube.
I'm trying to think of what was the most 49ers related responses we got that maybe Jason didn't touch on already. You didn't talk about that? Okay, so I talked to Joel Klatt. For any of you guys who watch college football, Joel Klatt does color commentary for Fox Sports, does a ton of college games, college analyst for them. And I asked him who he thought the best fit would be for the 49ers if they were to trade Deebo and take a receiver. And, he said, Drake London's probably in the mix. He liked Garrett Wilson. But the name that he threw out that he went extensively in depth talking about, and I'm going to post a clip on my Twitter shortly with his response, was Chris Olave. And he said that he thought Chris Olave off of play action was the best receiver in the class off of play action, that he thought that would be a really good fit for Kyle Shanahan. And he specifically mentioned that drift route over the middle of the field that Kyle Shanahan uses a ton, that's something that he felt that Olave would be really good at. I asked Daniel Jeremiah, too, who he thought the best fit would be. He thought Treylon Burks would be the move if the Niners do that. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I asked that specific question to. I'll be honest with you. The best interview that I had probably, or the one that I was most impressed with, was Garrett Wilson. That dude just seems destined for greatness. Like his tape speaks for itself. Just all around, like that to me, if the 49ers ultimately do move off from Deebo and they take a receiver, to me, like Garrett Wilson is the home run pick. I talked to Joel Klatt a little bit about that. He doesn't think Wilson's going to last till 10. So he thinks he's his wide receiver one. He has him up there. But so yeah, that's the big one. The other thing I would say, I'll let Jason get on, and I don't want to be the only one talking, was Jameson Williams was dripped out, man. This guy showed up. He had the big piece. He had the diamond watch on the wrist. He showed out, and I asked him if he felt like he's as explosive as he's ever been, and what he's feeling like personally with his rehab. He said he's running again. He feels great, and he believes he's wide receiver one. So, there was a lot. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of trying to focus on these receivers because we don't know what's going on with Deebo, man. It's a little up in the air from what we're hearing around here.
It is up in the air, and Jason and I were talking about it a little bit earlier about how, and I know you already know this, Jordan, it's Olave hype. Like that's back to the Justin Field days. And it's funny too, because Joe Klatt was someone who, of course, does a ton of Ohio State games and calls their games and has all that experience. So it does feel like, right, if let's say the San Francisco 49ers do move off Deebo, they get the 10th overall pick. Maybe Garrett Wilson's there, but Olave could be a guy. Maybe a trade down a couple picks to get Olave. I think we're all on the same boat with the Ohio State squad, it sounds like. What do you say, Jason?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of good buzz around those guys. Jermaine Johnson was somebody else who Jordan got a really good quote from, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about it, about his favorite team and his favorite player, because he was the one who actually asked. So I mean, and the other thing that was pretty cool was we're leaving. We're asking, hey, where can we go? And this nice young lady named Tiffany says, well, I can drive you guys over there. You guys are media. And we got in the golf cart and she drove us right over. So that was like already the coolest thing that's happened. But yeah, we're ready to have some fun now for a little bit, as there's no more media availability today with any players or anything like that.
Absolutely. So I asked this to Jason earlier, Jordan. What's your current take on the Deebo Samuel situation? Are we going to get to the draft and we're going to get through it and Deebo's going to be a 49er and we're going to work this out and we're going to sing Kumbaya and we're going to go play towards that 6th ring? Or are you starting to feel like there is a potential possibility that he gets moved either today or tomorrow?
It's tough, man, because I've flip-flopped my feelings on this, and I haven't really taken a hardline stance because it's changing so much day to day. It feels like the 49ers are reluctant to move him unless they're getting a package, which they're just frankly not going to get. We've seen what the market is for a receiver, and even if Deebo exceeds that, like that 10th pick alone would be unprecedented for a receiver. You don't see those moves made with that kind of value. I think it's going to happen, dude. I just think it's at the point where this is kind of, it seems irreparable, whatever happened. And to be honest with you, I think Deebo Samuel is a phenomenal player, and I think that the 49ers are better with him. But if it's truly at the point where it's unsalvageable, just trade him and get it over with, man. Get one of these receivers early. There's a lot of talent there. And again, I'm not saying they could just step in and take Deebo Samuel. I'm not saying the Niners would be better off without Deebo Samuel. But if it's as unsalvageable as it appears to be right now, just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with. That's just kind of where I'm at with it now.
Absolutely. I mean, it does feel like that. At a certain point, you don't want to hold a disgruntled employee or a disgruntled player. If it has really gone to that point where it's not going to work out, you kind of have to do what you want to do. Are you okay with trading, kind of like, thinking back to the DeForest Buckner situation, right? When they traded Defoe and they turned around and they took Javon Kinlaw. Are you okay with them taking a wide receiver with whichever pick they're able to obtain if they trade Deebo and taking it on a wide receiver, which would appear to be in the 1st round?
So it depends, right? Like if they take so I love Chris Olave. It'd be really hard to take him at 10. I'll be honest with you. Like Garrett Wilson, I could do it.
I agree with that.
I love Olave, but if you could trade back 5-6 spots and take Olave in like the teens or like the early 20s, yeah, I would do that. I don't think they have to take a receiver, no. So, like, I'll segue this into an interesting tidbit I got from Jermaine Johnson. Like, Jermaine Johnson's an edge guy who's getting a ton of hype. A ton of people think he's going to be a top 10 pick, really talented player. I was talking to him, and I was asking him, like, hey, like, who'd you grow up watching? Like, what team was, your favorite team growing up? And he said he wasn't a team guy. He was a player guy, and he loved watching Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick. And he said that he was a big Colin Kaepernick guy before he got the starting job in San Francisco. So he was a big 49ers guy throughout those years. So of course I had to ask him, hey, like, what would you think about playing on the same defensive line as Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa, working with Chris Kosaric? And he smiles and he goes, man, I usually don't feel bad for people. I'm not that kind of guy. I would feel bad for opposing offensive lines if that were to happen. And he had this big old grin on his face. So, hey, if the 49ers fall in love with a player like Jermaine Johnson, I would argue there's more value if the pick pans out in getting a bona fide edge rusher to pair with Nick Bosa than there is with a receiver. And you could always find one in the later rounds. You're not going to find a difference maker at edge. The odds of you finding a difference maker at the edge position in the later rounds are slim. You can do it. It's very hard. It's much easier to do it with the receiver. So, if a guy like Jermaine Johnson's there at 10 and you can make that move and the Niners like him, I would have no issues with that at all. I don't think it has to be your wide receiver.
That's a spicy nugget. I like that. Jermaine Johnson has been flying up boards. I know Daniel Jeremiah has him in high regard. And if he's already a 49er fan, you know he would love to come over here and wreck shop with Bosa. And I kind of agree with you. You know, maybe Garrett Wilson or could be a potential target. Jameson Williams, obviously dealing with the injury and stuff like that. There are a lot of wide receivers in this class. You can make an argument. You could maybe go Khalil Shakir. You could go David Bell. We're big David Bell guys, maybe at 61, maybe at 93. There are ways you can kick that positional value back, right? Because let's face it, we're probably not going to be finding the next Deebo Samuel in this draft. But if you take a approach where we could grab a couple guys and slot them into specific roles. I mean, we look at Kyle Shanahan, right? He schemes a lot of his stuff open. So although we needed Deebo last year to be able to come in and play the wide back and do all those types of things, it's not necessarily a need if they're able to maybe add running back, maybe in the second, third, fourth, and potentially pair him with multiple wide receivers, right? So I actually like that thought process. That could be spicy.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you're moving a guy like Deebo Samuel, you need impact players back. And I'd much rather them make a pick they feel comfortable with. Like, even if they get a guy like Linderbaum, hey, if you get your center for the next 5 to 7 years, that's a guy that could be a potential Pro Bowl, all-pro level player. Like, yeah, it's not a receiver, and people could argue that it's not as valuable. But to be honest with you, if you're insulating the interior offensive line and you're like, there's never a bad investment in the offensive line, especially when you have a young quarterback. So even though it's not a 1-to-1 and you can't compare a receiver's production to what a center is doing, if they feel better about a pick like that, I would much rather see them do that than feel they need to reach to replace that receiving threat that they're losing in Samuel, which again, it makes it way muddier, which is why I'm like never going to sit here and say, hey, they should trade Deebo Samuel for draft capital. This is the best move. If it's not salvageable with Deebo, they're going to have to get something back in return for him if they move him. And I'd much rather them take prospects that they feel comfortable panning out, whether again, it's a center, an edge, a safety, maybe. Like, I know a lot of people think maybe Kyle Hamilton would be there. They like him a lot. A corner, if a guy like Trent McDuffie's there, maybe they take a high ceiling corner and they add there. At the end of the day, you just need to make damn sure, like, hey, everybody misses on picks. You can't have a situation where you miss on this pick if you move on from Deebo Samuel. That's just, it will not go over well. There is a possibility that if they do move Deebo and they get an impact player, like, hey, let's say they get a Jermaine Johnson, and Jermaine Johnson ends up being a Pro Bowl level player, and he's a guy that's just wrecking shop with Nick Bosa. 3 years from now, we might look back as good as Deebo Samuel has been, not to diminish anything he's done. It might be the more prudent move in the long run if you get that player that's that difference maker. The problem is, the chances of it being a more impactful player than Deebo Samuel become very tough when we talk about the impact Deebo had this past season, which again is why you're probably not going to get equal value in terms of like immediate impact and overall impact. You're not going to get a guy that's going to do what Deebo Samuel just did, most likely, but you can still get a quality NFL starter or two. And if you come away with that, given the situation and how, just it seems like it's soured and it's not going to get fixed. You need to, what's that saying? Like, you need to make lemonade out of lemons at this point, right? And getting 2 quality starters is a much better return than reaching really high. Maybe you get a really good receiver, but they end up busting out and then you're left with nothing. You know what I mean? So I would just, what I'm trying to say is basically I would take a more conservative approach with those picks earlier in the first round. And as much as I'd love to see a high ceiling guy to get really excited about, you can't have a whiff on this one, man.
That's a great point. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, right? Because clearly, if Deebo Samuel does get moved, there is going to be a certain portion of the fan base and or media who could potentially put the crosshairs on the 49ers for how do you mess up the situation or what have you. But you kind of touched on it a little bit, and we haven't really talked about it. What do you think is happening at that center position? Do you get the sense with John Lynch speaking to the media on Monday that it does feel like Alex Mack is going to retire, and all of a sudden that center position, and unfortunately with the way the cap's set up and how much money is available, kind of feels like they have to go through the draft to potentially get a replacement center if need be, potentially kick Brunskill down to center, maybe draft another guard. Does that interior offensive line just skyrocket? We already talked about offensive linemen being a big need, but if it is true that Alex Mack is retiring, that changes a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, before I give my answer, we got to go. We're moving to a different spot. So they were kind enough to, they saw Jason DePonte at the front desk. Like, all right, we're going to give you late check-in. It wasn't even a second thought. We're trying not to, use up the Aponte card too much. So I unfortunately do have to go. We got to go and make sure we're doing that stuff promptly. But really quick before I go, thank you for having me on. And if there's any more we can do while we're here, I'm more than happy to. But yes, I think Alex Mack is gone. I think he's retired. I think he's had a great career. I think it's time for him to start focusing on family and the other things he's doing outside of football. And I think he's made that kind of clear. I just think it's a similar situation to where we saw Joe Staley. They didn't really, put that out there until they had that deal for Trent Williams in place. I think it's the same thing where, hey, it may be a minimal impact, but if it's the difference between a team not jumping in front of you to take a center or not jumping in front of you to take one of these interior offensive linemen, maybe that helps out. And it's better. Like, there may not be a great benefit, but you also stand to lose something if teams know the Niners are going to be in the market for a center, even if it's the thing, even if it's a situation like, hey, like Cam Jurgens or Dylan Parham or, Donovan West, one of these guys is available, then teams know, hey, you need this center. I have way more leverage for you in a trade up. You want to give me a fifth to move up. I want a fourth. You need this center. Little things like that may not be like a huge deal, but at this point, like, it just makes sense to kind of play it close to the vest. But yeah, I think he's gone. I think he's retired. And I think, the 49ers knew what they were getting into when they signed a 36-year-old center. And this is, basically what was coming either this year or next year. So I don't think it blindsided them in the slightest. I think this is something that they were prepared for and they have a plan for.
Absolutely. So it's going to be something that we continue to monitor, but we definitely got to link up maybe tomorrow before the draft. Maybe we can do a three-peat show or something like that ahead of the draft, but we'll figure it out. But I know you got to get on the move. But it's great talking to you, man.
Hey, anytime. And you guys already know out there, I know that there's a lot of Niners fans everywhere, but for all you Bay Area Niners fans and especially Warriors fans, I'm going to be out here big stepping in my Draymond jersey tonight, acting reckless. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to be having some fun. So I hope the Warriors close it out tonight. And yeah, we'll talk tomorrow, dude. We'll figure something out.
Absolutely, man. You have a good one, and we'll catch up later. Go Dubs, my guy.
All right, but hey, go Dubs, man. Let's go, baby.
All right, brother. Oh, God. I love that. I love that they just hopped on here. I'm over here on Aponte's channel. We're still running dual stream. We just had Aponte and Jordan Elliott show up. I mean, what a beautiful time it is. That was great. Shout out to both those boys for hopping back on. Hopefully we can get together tomorrow to do a little pre-draft show. But I also am going to take this opportunity. I don't want to hog up too much of Aponte's airtime here on his channel. So I'm going to head out too. This will probably be my last live for the day. Barring any substantial news. If any substantial news hits, you know what's going to happen. We are going to go live. So make sure you're subscribed to both channels, not only my channel here. Boop. Sub to that channel. Make sure you're also subbing to Aponte's channel. I have detail wanting me to check my DMs. Again, this is probably the best way to get a hold of me to check my DMs is literally bombard me in the chat and or just meet me face to face. You guys know I'm terrible at checking DMs, but I will check your DMs in detail after this. But yes, I'm out of here. Again, keep that bell on because if anything breaks, anything goes, we are hopping on right away to talk about it. We're gonna find out. This is going to be an intense 24, 36, whatever it's gonna be. These next chunk of hours is going to be insane for the San Francisco 49ers, one way or the other. I believe we're going to have clarity. I believe we're going to know what's going to happen. I believe we're going to know if Deebo is staying or Deebo is going. We're going to know that at the end of the first night of the NFL draft. I believe we're going to know that. So at least we're inching towards a little bit closer towards clarity. But until then, you're going to see no one's the 49ers aren't trading Deebo. This team's trying to get Deebo. Oh, well, they're not offering that. Well, Deebo doesn't, we're going to hear all the stuff. We are going to hear, oh, Justin saying he sent me DM months ago. I don't check IG DMs. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't check IG DMs. You got to catch me at the right time on IG. My IG DMs are disgusting. It is what it is. So if you get a response from me, you're lucky at this point, and I apologize if I don't. It's a trait that I have that I'm trying to work on. We're trying to get better at it. Corey says, I don't think it's happening during the draft today or tomorrow afternoon at the least. Well, Jason Aponte came on, said that he heard from someone on site that the 49ers, it's in their best interest to wait until like the clock is rolling to get the best potential offer, being able to get the most available with the clock rolling down. So, hey, we're going to find out. It's going to be a wild one. But again, shout out to everyone who tapped in today. We know these are wild times, and we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out here in the next day or two. So be patient. Take every report that you hear from here on out with a grain of salt. There's posturing. It's smoke season. The smoke is everywhere. The smoke chasers are on the scene. And as you know, if you are following me, if you're following Jason, we are on point. I'm just saying. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. We are on point with how we cover this team. So make sure you tapped in. Make sure you're subbing to both channels. Make sure you got that bell on and you're smashing that like button because we will be ready to go at any moment's notice. Shout out again to everyone who hopped on. Chat was lit today. Shout out to SDS. Shout out Spicy Aponte's squad. Shout out everyone who's vibing with us because we're going to probably get vibing tomorrow as well. Gotta love it. My inside source is Brad and Jason. I'm just saying, man, when you realize and you make your way around, you focus on a couple people, man, you'll start to see where the truth lies. I'm just messing with you. I appreciate everyone. As always, I'll see you guys again. For now, Deebo Samuel's a San Francisco 49er. We'll see if he's a San Francisco 49er the next time we pop on. Shout out Wild Wave. you had us having some fun here. But hey, hopefully Dougie gets it done. I'm praying for you. Appreciate everyone. We're out of here.